Welcome to the Flight Deck, a leading edge podcast. I'm Maggie from the Communications Committee.
I am Michael Wilson.
And today we are sitting down with two members of our training committee here at the MEC. We have Captain Mark Rosenhahn and Captain Jeremy Lynn. Thanks for coming in, guys.
You're welcome. Thanks for having us.
So Mark and I talked last year as a part of our Committee Compass series, what the training committee does day to day. Today, we're going a little more in depth here, and we're calling this one, So You Want to Be a Captain.
Big bids coming.
Yes.
A lot of things to consider.
Yes.
And there are many, many, many people who may have never had the opportunities like this to become a captain. These vacancies are becoming more and more junior as the company is awarding them. And we really, really wanted to sit down with probably the two experts in what happens at TK during that transition to the left seat. Before we get started, like I said, Mark and I, we talked last year. Can both of you, though, just give us a quick rundown and introduction, who you are, what you do for the MEC Training Committee?
Yeah, so I'm the training committee chair, and I'm also a 787 evaluator working in the training center. And I oversee the training committee. I tend to allow the committee to do certain things. I have a vice chair that goes ahead and handles the panel work. I tend to interact with the directors and the managing directors and talk to them about quality of training. That's a big part of what we do, is to ensure that the United pilots get the best possible training that they can do. So in a nutshell, that's essentially what I do. So.
And for me, I'm a 737 instructor and captain. I've been on the training committee for just over 3 years. And what I do on the committee is just a little bit of everything. Review panels, answer a lot of phone calls, PDRs, and on the training side in the building, I do some training development and curriculum, and having ALPA at the table with that is good. A lot of times there's things going on in development that I can come back to my chair and say, hey, this is what's going on, and I can ensure that ALPA's voice is heard at the table.
You know, I think a lot of people don't understand, a lot of pilots don't understand that ALPA representation isn't just during contract times, and that It starts from the minute they enter that training building, and also includes when they're doing the upgrade to captain. Right.
Well, I used to do new hire briefings and also captain briefings, and one of the things that we encouraged pilots to do is that when they start to experience trouble early, get a hold of us, because we can give them direction, we can give them advice, we can kind of help them navigate certain things. So it's important that we are involved early on, and we're there. We've got a good, strong committee to be able to help our pilots when they start to struggle a little bit.
You know, so this podcast is about So You Want to Be a Captain, and I think to start this, we ought to set exactly how important this is. And not only, we know how important this is. Look, if you're going to put your family on an airplane, are the two pilots up there safe, right? That's the benchmark of everything.
Right.
But what I looked at is I just went to, what does the company think is important? And the very first thing that it talks about in the flight operations manual, it talks about the operating priorities of United Airlines. And it says this: pilots, and specifically captains, are charged with evaluating the unique circumstances affecting each flight and applying their experience and initiative to meet United Airlines operating priorities. All of it is on you.
Yeah, you are the person in charge. You're the decision maker, the ultimate decision maker. And with that comes accountability, accountability to the passengers, to the crew, to the chief pilot, to the company. And so there's a lot weighing on a captain's shoulders. It's not an easy position to assume. and there's a lot of responsibility. So with that, then there is a high standard of expectation when you assume that role.
You know, I think it's interesting that because the very next part of that paragraph, it just says safety is the single objective that cannot be compromised.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And
Everything
the captain
starts,
is the one that does that.
everything starts with safety, and it fits right in line with the ALPA Code of Ethics.
So, in taking this captain upgrade, we know there are minimum requirements. You have to have the 1,000 hours of FAR 121 time. You have to have the 500 hours of United Airlines time. You have to have the seniority to hold it. But beyond that, what does it really mean to be ready for that upgrade?
I'll let Jeremy talk a little bit because he recently upgraded, but in my opinion, it really starts with preparation. All right, it starts with the right mindset, and it starts with preparation. You have to go into this, in my mind, studying all of the resources. I spent a considerable period of time studying myself when I upgraded from the 320 to the 787 3 years ago. I was studying for 6 months.
You had been on the 320 for
29 years.
29 years.
So there was not much that I had not known or that I didn't know about the Airbus, right? But when I came to the 787, it was a completely new environment for me, right? I'd never flown across the Atlantic or the Pacific, the Atlantic. I'd flown across the Pacific many years ago on the DC-10, but not the Atlantic. I was not familiar with Boeing Glass. I was not familiar with CPDLC, with ADS-B or C, and some of the new technologies that are out there. And so I had a huge hill to climb, and I hadn't learned an airplane in 29 years. So it was really, it was difficult. Plus I was 61 years old, and I discovered that I just didn't learn as well at that age as I used to learn when I was a younger person. So,
And all of a sudden you looked up and there was a HUD.
that too, right? So, trying to find where things were in the HUD. I found myself having to go back and look at pictures and say, oh, that's where that is.
I can't lie to you. Every time I look through the HUD, I would find something new.
Yes.
Has that always been there?
Yes. I know. Yeah, I'm still not finding things in the HUD, and I've been trying for 3 years.
So, Jeremy, before you took the upgrade, before you put your name on that list, how did you feel as though you were ready?
How did I feel that I was ready? How did I know that I was ready? I guess I would say just because I had been preparing for it long before the bid came. When I was hired at United in 2018, the upgrade time where I was hoping to be based as a new hire was about 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
I was 12 years away. So I started my time at United absorbing as much as I could from the captains I was flying with. Like Michael. I flew with Michael.
You and I flew together, bro.
Every captain you fly with will do things that are something that you could steal for your bag of tricks. And then sometimes you'll see things that maybe you shouldn't do. But I guess the point is you should be absorbing everything you can from the folks you're working with along the way so that you can be a good captain when the time comes. I would also say that self-awareness is very important. So let's say you're someone that comes through the qual course as a new hire and you're struggling a little bit. Probably it's not a good idea to take the first upgrade. Probably it's a good idea to get through some training cycles and get your feet under you and establish what it takes to be a United captain. Because I can tell you what we see, there's a lot of people that have been captains at other airlines, flying wide bodies internationally, and they come here and they struggle with captain training. I think a lot of it is United demands excellence. They demand the best, and we're a world-class airline, and they expect you to perform as such. And some people, I think, underestimate the requirements it's going to take to get done. Like it's tough.
So let me ask both of you. You were both, Jeremy, you're on the 737. You see crews coming through, and just in a CQ event.
Mm-hmm.
Sitting in the back, it's like sitting on the jump seat, and when you're sitting in that evaluator seat, you can see everything that the two pilots flying just don't see sometimes. But let me ask you, just as you're watching pilots in a CQ event, and you're watching a first officer, do you have a pretty good idea of the way that pilot is performing when you're like, this pilot's probably close. This pilot's probably ready to go.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you can tell right away. Sometimes you can even tell in the briefing. You just get that sense that this individual has put in the time, put in the preparation. They really know what they're doing. And it's just, for them, it's just a matter of, it's another trip. We're just going to fly another trip. There may be a couple of emergencies or a couple of things we got to do, but, I do the same thing all of the time, not just when I'm in a check ride. I do it the same way every time in an airplane as well, right? When you approach flying that way and don't cut corners, then going into an LOE is just another trip to point B.
So what you're saying is there's this philosophy that you don't have to unteach yourself bad habits just to go do that check ride.
Right.
Yep.
So an individual, let's say they've taken the upgrade, they've been awarded the upgrade, and they're getting ready to depart for TK, for the training center. How can mentorship or peer feedback play a role in helping these pilots prepare for their upgrade? Who can they lean on?
So we have a mentor committee.
Gabe does a great job.
Gabe does a really good job. He's put, a lot of resources to not just new hires, but also to new captains. And so I would reach out to the mentor committee, is a great resource. But, there are also pilots that you fly with that you just admire. And they seem to embody professionalism. They embody all of the qualities that you respect. They treat people with dignity and respect. And so those are people also that I would say you want to go ahead and tap. You want to tap that resource. Hey, why did you make the decision that you made, right? Tell me a little bit more about that. And so to me, that's something that I think somebody that's contemplating becoming a captain should be doing while they're first officers. Because once you become the captain, now you are the mentor. Yeah, you're the person that the first officer is looking up to.
I will point out that even mentors have the phone a friend.
Oh, absolutely. When I came to the 787, there are some people on the 787 that, I was calling regularly to say, hey, what does this mean? What are you doing in this situation? Why is the airplane doing this?
Right.
Some of the same questions I was asking on the Airbus. Why is it doing it that way, right?
Because it doesn't speak English.
What does this mean? That's right.
So, Mark, you experienced a pretty significant fleet change that probably came with new culture. What challenges should pilots expect, for example, the ones that are going from wide body FOs to narrow body captains, or someone doing the switch that you did? What should they expect?
Well, so a lot of the pilots that come from the wide body have been doing a lot of IRO flying.
A lot of dozing for dollars.
Dozing for dollars, right. The pace of the narrow body operation is much quicker. And I used to kind of joke around and say that, in the time that it took you guys to flight plan a trip on the 787, we've flown 3 legs. and that's not too far from the truth, right? So you've got to really up your thinking in terms of, speed. And so it takes a while to get used to that pacing, right? you've seen that a lot on the 737 fleet, I'm sure, when the IROs come to the 37 to fly as captain.
Yeah, it's not just, and it's just a completely different airline. We don't have the white glove treatment on the narrow bodies. It's more of a just get the job done. It's definitely, and it's just the automation level, at least if you're coming to the 737, is a lot less. So if you're coming from a wide body fleet, any of our wide body fleets to 737, you better know your systems a little bit better.
So you upgrade to captain is what you're saying, Jeremy. And if you look over at that pressurization panel on the 737, which seems to be the forward C, the reverse C, and then there's an upside down C. I don't know. But if you look over there, it's your job to make sure that that first officer programmed it correctly.
You know, exactly. So you may not be doing all of the flows as the first officer, but as your responsibility is, you know, anytime we're about to run a checklist, I'm looking at the overhead to see, is everything done before we take off? Is everything where it needs to be? So your SA needs to broaden a lot more when you move over to the left seat. And in the 737, a yellow light could mean any number of things.
Right.
You better know your systems to know what it means. So
You don't have the ECAM that tells you exactly what's going on over there on the 737.
I wouldn't know. I used to fly the 737-200. We didn't have an ECAM on that airplane.
Didn't have that either. ICAS wasn't a thing then.
Nor was glass. Right?
So the individual this hypothetical individual we're walking through the process, they've now decided to take the upgrade. They're sitting in their qual course. What human factor themes do you see the most during upgrade training? What pitfalls or even like what admirable human factor traits do you see in some individuals?
I would say the best thing you can see, it'll start in the procedures phase for a new captain, is they don't get so absorbed in what they're doing that they forget that the person in the right seat has a lot of things going on as well. And your job is to manage. It's not just to do your thing. So situational awareness, monitor, cross-check. VVM is huge, 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 huge. If you spinning the heading bug, hey, I'm turning the heading bug to this. The more you talk, the more the other person is aware of what you're doing, and you have that shared mental model. So if you see somebody that talks a lot and is kind of taking a step back and watching what's happening and slowly, methodically responding to what's happening, they usually perform a lot better.
You know, I always found that when I was a first officer, if I was flying with a captain that did VVM, that was a very big proponent of VVM, I relaxed because I knew that person knew what was going on. And they were telling me what was happening. It made the flight just easier for me.
Yeah, it gave you an opportunity to get into their head a little bit, right? That you knew what they were thinking, and if their thinking started to become wrong, you could trap that error right away, right?
Exactly, because we've all flown with a guy that you had no idea what they were thinking.
Right. And so then it becomes, a guessing game. What's this person going to do? And I'll add to what Jeremy said. I think VVM is a hugely important tool. Communication is a theme that we see written up a lot. Another theme that we see written up a lot is workload management. When workload management, and it's the captain's responsibility to establish the workload management. When the workload management is not working properly, what it tends to do is cause situational awareness problems. And then once situational awareness starts to go away, then you see pilots make big mistakes.
I would think today's new check rides, because I think they're different, right? When you're doing an LOE today, I think it's different than what we used to do 10 years ago. Today, we seem to overload the pilots with an awful lot of tasks.
Yeah.
So I would just think that if you think that's an overload, when the emergency is real in the real airplane and you're the one calling for this,
right,
that should not be your overload. You need to be on task, and you need to do it in a cadence for that first officer or whatever that first officer needs.
Right.
Just like the DISC assessment tells you how to communicate with someone, you need to know how to call for that checklist and make sure that that pilot is still engaged with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that when we're trying to load pilots up in these LOEs, one of the skill sets that the company is trying to develop is the idea of distraction and managing distractions. Sometimes I think that leads to cognitive overload. So, it really becomes important then to learn how to prioritize tasks. You can't do two things at one time. So you have to be able to sit back and say, okay, this is the most important task right now. This is the closest alligator to the boat. We'll deal with the next alligator when that animal gets closer to the boat.
So this hypothetical pilot has done well in their qual course. They now are in their OE. They're flying the real airplane. What is the best way, and this is apropos because we were sitting in these chairs yesterday with the uniform committee, how do the pilots set the tone for professionalism besides wearing a nice, crisp, clean uniform? How do their small daily actions make them a professional?
Showing up on time, early, being prepared. It's common sense stuff in my mind. But, a standard briefing as a captain, your briefing needs to be SOP. That stuff sets the stage for what's to come for the rest of the trip. And, to divulge into the briefing, I would say, I see new captains sometimes, they'll have their briefing card out and they're talking about one of the lines in the briefing card, but they don't really know the details behind what they should be discussing. And there's a HF QRG that you can go reference. All that stuff is just pulled from the FOM. But that kind of stuff going into depth on the knowledge, not just on the surface, not just scratching the surface, I think goes a long way to professionalism and setting the stage for what's to come.
So in the QRG, it has your briefing card with a hyperlink that tells you which each component or element of that briefing is supposed to contain. It tells you what to brief.
Right.
It organizes it for you.
It goes into detail on things like, pilot duties currency. You're flying, I'm talking. That's what I hear all the time. Well, there's more in there. There's more in there to discuss, and it can make your FO's life a lot easier if you do a proper briefing, because later they're not wondering, how are we going to transfer controls? Do you want me to do the PAs, or are you going to do them? Do you want me to answer the phone and talk to the flight attendants? Do you want me to make the turbulence PAs? That's all in there. Like, that's stuff you should be discussing, but a lot of people just don't, because maybe they don't know the information is there. But the HFQRG is huge. When I first started as a captain, I would go in and just read each expanded version before the flight. Okay, am I going to cover everything with my briefing? And my briefings were probably a little bit lengthy in the beginning, but I think they've thinned down to where they should be. But I guess just put more meat and potatoes on the briefings, because I think that just sets the stage for how you're going to run the cockpit.
If you just say, I'm flying and you're talking, but you have a really complicated 10-7 page that you haven't even mentioned yet.
Exactly.
Probably you haven't covered some good material.
Right. Exactly.
If you could give one piece of advice to a pilot who is about to start their first leg in the left seat, what would that piece of advice be?
Have fun.
It's a great job.
So the hardest part for me was taxiing, because you try to taxi the sim and it's not. Like, the sim is, and I'm a sim jockey. I'm a sim instructor. I shouldn't, but it's really real airplane's completely different. And taxiing is so fun. It's all so fun. Honestly, I wouldn't say just absorb what you can from the LCA. Or LCP, excuse me. They know exactly what it takes, and try to just enjoy the ride is what I would say. You obviously need to be prepared and all that stuff, but have fun with it. You're United captain now.
Yeah.
OE is supposed to be fun.
Yeah, it's a journey, and it's just getting started, right?
Oh,
You got a
absolutely.
long journey ahead of you.
So let's take a turn.
Yeah.
We have a pilot. They've selected their in upgrade, and let's talk some problems. The pilot starts to struggle in training, and I think we have some pretty significant numbers of pilots that do this. They struggle, and I think what's important for pilots to understand is this is where ALPA steps in to help.
Clearly, we'll step in if they reach out to us. But we have a enhanced pilot proficiency policy that we work off. If it's actually part of Section 9 of the UPA, we work with the company to administer the policy, and there are certain triggers that get you into that situation or into that policy that we can discuss if you want to. But once that you're into that policy now, ALPA is fully engaged with the company with the intent that we're going to try and tailor training for you that is going to help you overcome whatever hurdle is, causing you to stumble.
So everybody that gets stressful in training, or anybody that struggles in training and it becomes stressful, they can realize that they don't just have to go back to that Sheraton hotel room alone and figure it out.
Right.
There's help.
Right. Well, and that's a significant thing that you just mentioned. Pilots are under a lot of stress to perform. Some of that is self-induced, and it's a matter of the pilot having to learn how to manage that stress. So when pilots make mistakes, they just need to learn from those mistakes and move on. And we try to stress that in evaluations when we conduct evaluations for the pilots. Look, you're going to make mistakes. That doesn't mean that we're going to fail you just because you made some mistakes, right? So learn how to handle that stress and move on. But know that we will be walking alongside of you, and we will be involved in the process of getting you more training and getting you the training that you need tailored to your weaknesses, so to speak, so that we can get the pilot over the hump and then get them moving on.
So, Jeremy, a pilot starts to struggle and it reaches the point that they reach out to you, someone reaches out to you. What are the first steps?
So are we talking about a situation where maybe they're paused, or they're struggling and they want help?
Let's say they're paused.
Okay, so
What does it take to be paused, and what gets you there?
So to be paused would be 3 or more retrains, 2 consecutive short cycles, or proficiency concerns. So that's what could get you paused in training. When you get paused, we get an email immediately. That same email, that anomalies report, goes to fleet training as well. When we get that email, we will be giving you a call. And, it could be me calling you, Michael, and say, hey, I see you've been paused in training. Here's what you can expect going forward. We're here to support you. And then as we move down the process of a review panel, we would just have more discussions about, if once it gets to the point where you have a review panel scheduled, I would call you back and we would just talk for maybe an hour, hour and a half. What's going on in life? Is there anything impacting your training outside of training? What can we do to best advocate for you to get the training you need? I need you to understand that I'm not the company. I'm somebody you can tell me whatever you need to tell me. I'm here for you. And then from there, we will take that information and go into a conference with the company, and we will negotiate the training plan that you need and make sure you're successful.
So you're saying that the standard never changes, but the program adapts to what that pilot needs to make them successful.
Absolutely. Yep.
So the training review panel commences,
Mhm.
and a pilot then moves on with whatever prescription you made for them to continue their success. What happens if they're continually unsuccessful?
So we have what's called training review panels,
Mhm.
and then we have what's called a pre-final review conference. Um, if it gets to a point where you're simply not making progress, then it can go into a pre-FRC, and that situation, you can go from getting more training. It may end up to where we go to the same kind of a panel with the company, and we end up coming out with more training to try to help you over the hump. And it can come to the point where the company has said, look, like, we've given all the training that we can give in this situation. And in that situation, then an upgrading captain would be looking at returning to the right seat of the aircraft that they previously flew.
Which is a contractual provision.
Right.
Right. In Section 8 of the contract.
So let me ask you this, Mark. You're watching these captains upgrade. Just for perspective, how many struggle percentage-wise?
It's just under 2%, about 98, a little over 98% of the pilots get through successfully without any problems. We typically see about just under 2% of the pilots struggling with their upgrade.
2% of the pilots that upgrade, and we have significant numbers that are upgrading. So that's a significant number of pilots that struggle. You guys are busy working hard to make sure that those pilots get good representation and support to bring up what they need to meet that standard.
Right. That again, it's just, when we get into the panels, we start looking at what are the skill sets that are deficient, and therefore what is it that we need to do in order to get this person to a point where they meet the standard and can move on with their training.
I think what's important to point out is that you never advocate that the standard is lowered.
No.
The standard is exactly what it is, and everyone has to meet that.
Absolutely, the standard is the standard, and it is very high to be a United captain. We don't ever ask the company to lower the standard. What we do is we try to give them more training that is tailored to their deficiencies.
So we've heard throughout this entire podcast what it takes to be a successful captain. We are not here to discourage anyone from taking the upgrade.
Absolutely not.
We are not here to dissuade. We are simply here to tell you what an incredible opportunity it is, but also how serious it is.
Yeah. Well, let me add to that, because some of the feedback that we get from these new captains is wow, I didn't realize just how hard this was going to be. I was a captain at my prior airline, and I thought this would be just a cakewalk.
Mm-hmm.
And then they get in there and they realize this is harder, and I wasn't expecting this. I wasn't anticipating this. So what we're really trying to do is make sure that when you're getting ready to take that bid, that you've kind of weighed all of the pros and the cons, and that you're mentally ready to go. That you have essentially accepted that this is where I want to go, and I'm going to work my hardest to get there.
So you have the flight manual, which is vast.
Mm-hmm.
Just learning the airplane is a lot of material.
Right.
Then you have a 1,000-page flight operations manual.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of material that tells you not only how that plane operates, this is how we want you to operate it. And these are how we want you to deal with passengers and flight attendants and gate agents and everybody else that might impact your airplane. And oh, by the way, you're the on-scene person.
Mm-hmm.
You're it.
Right.
When something goes sideways, when something goes great, you're the one we're going to come to.
Absolutely. And so, you mentioned, the resources in the flight manual and the FOM, right? And it's vast. you're not going to have all the answers. You know, it's just too much information. But there are resources there to help you in the operation. I think United Airlines provides more resources than any airline I've ever flown with, and I've been with 4 different airlines. So the idea really is where do I get the resource that helps me work through this problem? And that resource may be sitting in your right seat, or it may be in the back of the airplane in the cabin, you know, in the form of a flight attendant. So, you know, you use those to help you with your decision making and your problem solving.
I will tell you, when I upgraded to captain, I immediately evaluated myself on how good I was as a first officer. Was I who I wanted to fly with?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And just to come on what you said, Maggie, when you were talking about those things, it's a great job. I wouldn't dissuade anybody from this gig.
No, and how lucky are we to be in positions where pilots with only a few years here can take the upgrade?
Right.
It's an incredible opportunity. And so, yeah, no dissuasion here.
Awesome.
But the preparation is necessary.
You have to study.
Yeah.
You do. Yeah. You have to put the time in.
And there's no going back. Once you push that button, there's no undo.
That's correct. You are committed. Once you push the button, you're committed until you either get through the program or you get bid restricted.
So, by the way, when you think it's really cool to just see your name on a snapshot,
Yeah.
oh, by the way,
Yeah,
if you're not hitting the books now, you're already late.
that's correct. You better start cracking them.
And check your standing bids.
Check your standing bids. Exactly right. And just to point out one more time, just for re-emphasizing this, 29 years on one airplane, and you switch to the 787, and you 6 months early you start studying for this.
Yeah, well, you know, I was not going to be the butt of jokes. Yeah.
But nobody should want to be. We should all be that prepared.
That's right. I think I was sharing with you earlier that I just had my CQLOE, and I started studying 2 months early because it would not be good for the training committee chair to be in the enhanced pilot proficiency policy. So,
just no way.
And
Yeah.
you know what's on the check ride.
and I know what's on the check ride.
So I've got to ask you, because, you know, when you see someone that's nervous on a check ride, you see that evaluator come through the door, you start making evaluations of that person. Are
Right.
they in a good mood?
Mm-hmm.
They're
Yeah.
not smiling.
That's right. Did they get enough sleep last night?
Exactly right.
That's right.
A lot of traffic on the way in. Did
That's
you
right.
see those people that you knew?
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, and there are some people, like we said, they have a hard time managing that stress level,
Mhm.
right? So, as an evaluator, I try to put people at ease. I think I've learned that over the last 30 years. But sometimes the evaluators are different, right? Different personalities, different expectations, and you've got to learn to, just like you got to learn to fly with different first officers, you have to learn to deal with different evaluators.
Exactly.
So, in closing, are there any parting words you wish to impart on anyone listening that may be listening to this as their, do I want to be a captain?
I would just say, you know, the mentor committee, as Mark said, reach out to them. We have abundance of resources at your disposal, and you can reach out to us directly. PDR us, give us a call, send us an email. We're glad to talk to you about it. But preparation. Don't submit the upgrade bid until you've already started studying for it. That's what I would say.
Great advice.
Mental and technical preparation.
Exactly.
Right. I would also add, do things the right way every time, not just when you're in the check ride environment. Do it out on the line. When you hold yourself to that standard, then you don't have to act in front of the evaluator during the check ride, right? And what it will do is it will actually make you a better pilot.
Things happen to the best of pilots.
Absolutely.
Every time. And so when you're sitting in that flight safety investigation and you're the only one at the long end of that conference table and it's just you and your bottle of water,
Mm-hmm.
and they say, did you pull landing data? And if you just can say yes because it was free and it was good information, yes, I did.
Yes, I did. Yeah, because I do it every time.
because I do it every time.
Well, thank you guys so much for being here in our beautiful new studio. And thank you to our listeners. This has been the Flight Deck, a Leading Edge podcast.
We will see you on the line.